I've been doing it for about 2 years now. I really don't notice things. I mean, just ever. But that's why the skin, it was like, oh my gosh, that was totally noticeable. And then on my back, when I first started with the panel, it's like it made a mole. And I thought, ew, I want to take away things, not add things. And so anyway, this mole appeared and then it went away. It's like it needed to come out of me,
wow.
Whatever it is. And what else? I don't know. Things like have just started appearing, like dry patch, it might be bumps or something, but it's like they're working their way out. So that's just super amazing. It just everywhere. It just seems to be working things out.
Yeah.
Oh, I did have a floater and it's gotten way small. I had one like big floater and it has actually gotten, let's see, this morning I can see it when I'm in the red light and it's like hardly there anymore.
And you think the red light reduced that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. How long has it been with red light therapy?
2 months, month and a half.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So what do you think? Where do you think that floater will be at in 2 months' time?
I think it's going to be gone. I think it's on its way for sure.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
Yeah.
It does.
It takes a lot of courage to go through what we've been through.
The doctors themselves are coming more and more because they say, hey, I'm not the same.
I laid in bed for 6 months with this raging pain.
One of the things that we have to have the courage to do is to act upon the information we have in front of us.
And what's the success of some of these therapies? What are you seeing as the results?
Well, I think what we're seeing is a great deal of promise.
So we need this solution because it will create a cancer from here to 2030.
Hey, it's Jonathan Otto, and welcome to episode 5, Mold, Mycotoxins, and Mind Control, the hidden epidemic no one talks about. In this episode, we're uncovering one of the most dangerous health threats that you're most likely not addressing in your own homes, mold. Mold is another hidden epidemic that can have devastating impacts on your body and mind. And there have been tens or even hundreds of thousands of research studies published on this matter. For example, in a study titled Mold and Mycotoxin Exposure and Brain Disorders, exposure to mold can cause long-term cognitive issues affecting everything from memory and mood to overall brain function. The worst part, you don't even have to go outside to be exposed to these toxins. And this is because mold is commonly found in our homes, hidden in places we don't even think to look. From damp basements to leaky roofs, these toxic substances can grow unnoticed, silently destroying your health. Mold can also disrupt the brain in similar ways to psychiatric disorders. For example, individuals who are exposed to these toxins experience brain fog, irritability, and memory loss. Some even report changes in behavior and mental clarity, and this can leave you feeling out of control, struggling with symptoms without understanding the real cause. For example, even more, the negative impacts of mold aren't just limited to brain health. These can also affect other systems and organs in your body, such as your immune system. A study published in PubMed revealed that long-term exposure to mycotoxins can cause chronic inflammation, weakening your body's natural defenses and leaving you vulnerable to a range of health issues. This is more than just a nuisance. It's a serious long-term health concern that's often overlooked. Luckily for us, we're going to learn from some of the world's best mold experts about how you can detect and deal with mold exposure. To start off this episode, we're joined by Rebecca Smith, whose story reveals a hidden danger. Everyday chemicals once were exposed to without a second thought, silently wreaking havoc on our health. She had no issues growing up, but after getting vaccinated for school, she started developing strange sensitivities. At first, she didn't think much of it. But over time, things got worse. As a cosmetologist, Rebecca worked with the same products for years until one day her body had had enough. A sudden severe reaction changed everything. Medications only made things worse, and doctors had no answers. The only advice she received: go back as close to what God gave you in nature. That's when things started turning around. Through detoxing, diet, and working with naturopaths, Rebecca's body began to heal. Her chemical sensitivities improved. She even detoxed parasites she never knew she had. This raises an important question. How many people are suffering right now without even realizing their environment is poisoning them? The good news: you can protect yourself. Once you understand the hidden dangers, you can take control of your health. Stay with us as we expose the biggest environmental toxins and, most importantly, how to break free from them.
My name is Rebecca Smith, and I live in Ohio, and I'm a wife, semi-retired. My health journey really started about 25 years ago. I was diagnosed with MCS, multiple chemical sensitivity. It's an autoimmune condition, and I couldn't find any help then for it. No, nobody knew anything about anything like that. And I eventually did find someone out of town, a doctor, and got tested there. And that's how I actually was diagnosed that that's what I had. And so I started getting treatments from him, from a naturopath, endocrinologist, and an integrative doctor that all worked together as a team to take me through detoxing. I'm not from here. From my original contact with the problem, actually, from just learning everything I've learned over the years, actually came from when I moved here. I'm from the Appalachian Mountains, and I'm from a farming community, very rural. And when I came here, I had to get vaccinated. And so I got my shots to go to school. And then not long after that, I started having sensitivities to things. But prior to that, I had never had any. And then as time went along, they got a little worse as I was exposing myself to things because I wasn't aware, of any of that. And then I started working as a cosmetologist later down the road, and I was using some chemicals that I'd used for some years, and then I guess my body just had too much, and just one day I had a severe reaction, and as they gave me medications to try to counter it, I had more reactions to that. And it was just, thank goodness, a doctor, even though I couldn't get help at the time, the doctor I had, he kind of knew that, what was happening to me, but he said he didn't know what to do for me. And he told me the only advice he could give me is to go back as close to what God gave you in nature. And that was really the best piece of advice he could have gave me. I started going to different seminars around here. And then I met Jonathan when he did Ty and Charlene's interview with the Truth for Cancer. From there, I probably have seen all of Jonathan's almost all of them. So from there, I was able to get educated on more about, what was going on with me and just trying to do things and, combat it. And I did pretty good with the chemical sensitivity. I even got to the point where I wasn't even reacting to things anymore once my immune system kind of really got going, and I got detoxed and even got detoxed with parasites that I wasn't aware that I had until they did the testing. And so from there, the rest is history. Here I am. Jonathan's protocols with his, I've done others, but what really helped with his is that because I'm chemical sensitive, I know I'm living in a toxic world. So even though I'm doing fine with that, I always have to be careful not to wind up back where I was. So what I really liked was when he started the coaching, Collins coaching, with the and with the book, or what was it, Medical Medium, with Anthony Williams. And because I always try to do foods first, because that just works better for me. I can be sensitive even to things that are good if I get too much of it, if that makes any sense. So when we were in the coaching classes, I was learning about using things like the potato skins. Colleen was saying, eat the skins, cook them this way, eat them, the asparagus soup. And I started making improvements. Now with the potato skins, it unleashed, I think they call it the mucoid. I guess I'm pronouncing it right, because Jonathan did interview doctors that talked about that later after I had my experience. But it unleashed the mucoid layer. And from there, I started being able to sleep better. I hadn't been able to sleep like in a couple of years. I would just sleep a couple of hours and I would wake up in the middle of the night and I couldn't go back. But behind that, I just started sleeping like I used to sleep. And I did take a picture. It's kind of gross, but I just didn't know. I just took a picture of it because it took maybe 2 hours of me throwing up. I threw it up. And I wanted to do it the other way, but I didn't have certain things I needed. And so I guess that's the way it came up. But after I did it, I felt much better. And then things like the asparagus soup, I kind of doctored it up a little because I didn't quite like the taste, and added some sweet peas because I liked that they had the list of things. You weren't just tied into just a couple of things, and this is how you had to do it. If you didn't like one thing, go on the list and substitute it. So when I started doing the asparagus soup in there, I started getting, my eyesight started getting better. And it was like it didn't start until I started eating the soup. Now, I've had bad eyes since I was born. I've been wearing glasses since I was 5. And I did relate this experience in the class there because I was so excited. I went to do my renewal of my driver's license, and I was concerned, as to whether I was going to be able to read the chart. So when I got there, I did have my glasses, but I knew I couldn't see out of them. So I figured I wasn't going to be able to see how to read the chart either. So I told the examiner, I said, I can't see out of these glasses. And she said, but you're supposed to have them on. And I said, but I can't see out of them. Can I just try without them? Now, I didn't think I was going to make it. I read the eye chart and passed the test. I have been wearing glasses since I was 5. I've been driving since I was 20. I have never taken my renewal without my glasses on. I simply wouldn't be able to see the chart. So that let me know something good was happening with these foods. And so I just stuck with it. Even after Colleen got done with us, I told her I stayed on an extra month just following that because I was comfortable with that. I wasn't too comfortable with going right into supplements because of things that had happened in the past. And not that they're not good supplements. I see the things in them, but it's just that with my sensitivity, I have to go slow. I have to do a few things, and then if that works out, then take on the next things, which was the BioCleanse, Restore, the enzymes, and the Gut Pro, and the black seed oil. I started those, but by the second week, I had to go a little slower. So by doing that, that made a difference. And even though I was pooping it out too and sweating it and whatnot, but I didn't want all that harshness with vomiting, out. So I saw a lot of good things: the sleep, the eyes, just being able to get some of that poison out of me. And so just being able to detox and cleanse and have some gut health and whatnot helped me a lot there in that area. My friends were never on board with it. I don't really talk about it because where I am everybody is get the medicine, just do that. And I couldn't do shampoos and I couldn't do all cosmetics and all these other things because I've been eating organic, try to clean up my environment and everything. So it was more about that. That just wasn't going to help me. It was going to send me back to where I was years ago. So that was my reason. But my husband's supportive and my son is supportive. I have a grown son. And matter of fact, he's even doing more. He's told me yesterday, he called me and he said, I'm watching Jonathan's thing. Now I was like, you're doing what? He said, I'm watching them. He said, I didn't get to see it all. But he said, but I'm watching them. And so he was asking me things. And I think my husband's watching too. I kind of caught him one night. But that's my support there. And the support I get from the group, you know, coming on the program and stuff, it gets me there. And hopefully my friends will. I do have one friend that is now doing things. Her husband has cancer. It's hard to find doctors. And some doctors that I used to could see, just they kind of went the other way. So I like the fact that he has like Dr. Group, he has Dr. Artis, Dr. Jana and Ely, and all the other doctors that he's interviewed, because I've been able to glean things from each of them. For example, Dr. Group with the urotherapy. When I was infected with the shedding, I also at the same time got, I guess, exposed to a toxin that was in a supplement that someone else had given me. And then later through Jonathan's program, he was interviewing a doctor that was talking about how some of the waters where this particular substance came from, they were actually had gotten exposed to toxins. And that answered, you know, what had happened to me. So just being able to know, you know, and put pieces together of, you know, why did this happen? You know, I was trying to be careful. And so Dr. Group, I used the urine therapy. Urine therapy was not foreign to me because of where I'm from. They practice urine therapy. And I practiced it on my children when they were babies. So I used it on them and I used it on me, you know, on my skin. So when I had the outbreak, this side of my face from the supplement that I'd used, this side of my face, it just split open on both sides. I've never experienced anything like that. My skin totally turned different. I get affected with Bell palsy when when I'm exposed to something really bad. So you probably can even tell. I try to kind of like want to hide it, but this side of my face literally fell. And then my eye swole big. If I mentioned Nancy, I don't remember her last name, but she's on Jonathan's programs and was interviewed. When I saw Nancy, that just kind of gave me a little hope because I didn't know anyone else that was affected like that, and I wasn't talking about it to anybody. And so when I saw her, I said, oh, you know, she was way worse than I was, because at the time she wasn't doing the urine therapy and I was. And I think if I had not have been, that it would have probably progressed to the point that hers was. So I just would put urine compresses or then just leave them there. I would find something to wrap it and just leave it there on my face. And it drew. I put it on my mouth. This ear here swelled twice the size it was. It split open like up in here. It split. And it just was almost black. It's still discolored. But I put it just in the areas that it happened. All across here was the same effect. And this in here was normal, just the ear. But this was just totally messed up, but not the ear here. And, you know, I hate to even say it, but I felt like I was undergoing some kind of transformation. I don't know. I've never seen my skin like that before. And I really didn't think I was going to ever get back to some kind of normalcy, with my skin. But the urine therapy helped. I had other things that I did that I had used just over the years, like homeopathic creams. Like I had moringa oil, a lot of things that were just natural, clean oils that I can get, and essential oils. And I don't know if I can show anything, but I had a cream that I got from my homeopathic store. It's called Medicare, and it has like a combination of a lot of essential oils and carrier oils and stuff that are really good for severe skin issues and whatnot. So I would use the urine therapy, and then I would put a little bit of that over that, and then I made a paste of aloe vera juice gel and aloe vera powder, because the itching and the irritation was so severe. And I remember Nancy saying that, and I would put that over it, and it would just seal it in. And then it just started to draw out, I guess, whatever the toxins was. It would draw it out of my eye, it was drawing it out of my ear, out of this side of my face, and out of the corners of my mouth, because all these areas were split. Up here, I still have 2 scars where this was literally split open, and that the urine therapy kind of halted it, and then other things kind of allowed it to heal and be soothed, so it just wasn't so, aggravating and painful.
Next, Susan Russell and Lane Simmons returned to expose an even bigger problem with mold, one that's been ignored for far too long. Most people assume mold is only an issue if they see it, but the truth is toxic mold hides behind walls, under roofs, and ventilation systems, making it nearly impossible to detect with traditional inspections. That's where Zia, the mold dog, comes in. Trained with over 1,000 hours of specialized scent detection, Zia can find mold that air tests and inspectors miss, saving families from years of hidden exposure. And the consequence of missing it? Life-altering health issues, chronic fatigue, brain fog, allergies, and even neurological disorders, all triggered by mold that no one knew was there. Susan and Lane break down why standard mold testing often fails, how Zia exposes the hidden truth, and what you must know to help protect yourself and your family. After that, Doug Kaufman takes the mold conversation to an even more shocking level, revealing how fungal infections are not only more common than what we've been told, but may be at the root cause of countless chronic diseases. For decades, mainstream medicine had ignored the role that fungi play in chronic illness, but the research is clear. I recently read a 2015 study that found fungal infections in the brains and bodies of 11 out of 21 Alzheimer's patients. This is exactly what I've been warning about. Mold toxicity isn't just an allergy issue. It can invade your body, cross the blood-brain barrier, and trigger neurodegenerative diseases, immune dysfunction, and even cancer. Doug uncovers the real impact of fungal infections, how they hijack the body's immune system, and why so many cases of mystery illness are actually undiagnosed mold toxicity. He breaks down how fungi manipulate the body, why mainstream medicine refuses to address it, and most importantly, how to get rid of these hidden infections before they take control. Hey there, it's Jonathan Otto. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode and for the Healing Revolution series. Offering this free screening to the world is something that is my greatest honor. I'm so thrilled to have hundreds of thousands of people have an interest in this. We are reaching, even if you look at some of our Facebook media that we've got out there, even hundreds of millions of views against our videos. And that is because we have such unique information and it actually works. What you'll find in this series is that when you use these protocols, what's different about our program and about our information is that it actually works. And why is that? Because we have the most cutting edge information, tools, protocols that is out there. And part of the reason for that is that I'm not willing to hold anything back. There's nothing that we say, hey, look, we're only going to provide this to people if they pay for it, or we're not. So we don't do that. We just freely screen all the content. So I hope you're really enjoying this. It comes as a labor of love and it comes from the heart, both from me and my team and the experts that are sharing with you. Also, one of the reasons why we're able to get such incredible results is because we're willing to speak about things that few people are willing to speak about. Even some of the world-leading clinics, like that you could actually spend $50,000, $100,000 on, and a lot of people do this when they're in chronic states, and I understand why. But even in a lot of these world-leading clinics, and I could even bring the founders on to even share this with you, which is a sad reality, is that there are many tools that they're not able to use due to the censorship that exists. Not just censorship, but actually the fact that these clinics can be shut down immediately if they're found to be using some of the therapies that we're sharing with you, like chlorine dioxide is one of the examples, but many, many others. And as a result, they have to refer people to watch series like this and to use these resources because they're not allowed to either educate on them or to give those tools there at these clinics. And as a result, you're in a situation where the best thing to do is to have these resources at your fingertips, to own this resource. And that's part of the reason why we're offering this for you to own, to have the printed materials, the printed transcripts. So everything you're watching, you then have it at in your fingertips. You can flip through it and underline and use it online. The upside with the online access is you can use your Finder tool so that you can look for the keywords of any particular subject you want to look on through all the content. You could just access it that way, as well as the videos, having them on hand in your membership area and on a flash drive. So you'll see that in our package. We're giving that as a great tool with the 24 episodes, which is the 12 main episodes, 12 bonus episodes. Also, you'll see the 60 full-length interviews. So we're giving you all of that amazing content in this package. And when you place your order today, you'll get something extraordinarily special, which is our red light therapy belt, which features both red and near infrared light. And with these two wavelengths, which is 660 and 850, they are the most proven wavelengths. And when you use this device, which covers any area of your body that you put it on, which will give direct red light to that area as it pulsates through the rest of your body, because your body then picks that up and that becomes systemic. There's even been studies done where they'll get somebody to get into a red light therapy bed, have an injured ankle, put their ankle outside of the bed, let the rest of their body get treated. And because the red light is getting into the rest of their body, it's healing the ankle, even though the ankle never got direct exposure. That being said, when you have an injury, definitely the best place to put the red light device is on the injured area, the area that you're seeking comfort and injury repair, or to stimulate the mitochondria in that area, like over your heart, your kidneys, your intestines, your liver, all your vital organs, even your brain. And your red light therapy belt has the versatility to be used in that fashion. I'll show it right here. And here it is right here. I'm going to turn it on. And let's turn it up to its highest intensity. Now you can apply this wherever, and it's a great high quality belt that you can use with the Velcro, very comfortable. Place it over the affected areas, take the supplements that are in your protocol, and watch it all work synergistically together. Okay, so I'm not going to present with the rest of the video with this on. I'll take it off, but it's a beautiful device, and one that's getting tremendous results. And we've been sharing with you some of those breakthrough results. Depending on what episodes that you've watched, you can reference back at any point when we show some of the previous episodes. Keep an eye out for some notices on that. But generally, we're shutting down every episode every 24 hours, paving way for the next episode. So make sure to watch the episodes while they're live. And in these episodes, you'll see all the transformations. They're remarkable. The skin conditions that are clearing up on people's faces, on their back, on various areas of their body, especially when in combination, when they're using these tools together with a great supplement regime that's detoxifying their organs, supporting the mitochondrial function of their organs. This is the combo approach that is the thing that I wish that all the functional medicine doctors were talking about, all the naturopaths were talking about. I wish that they were all talking about this, but often they're just talking about one or the other, if any of them at all. And that's what somebody like Natalia Voloshin found. And I tell you why her story is so powerful is because she saw 30 specialists. Of those, half of them, so somewhere around 15 were naturopaths, functional medicine doctors. The other half were conventional, Cleveland Clinic, big name clinics that are well respected in mainstream medicine. So she tried both. And that came at a pretty penny. That was over $200,000 of her money spent over 5.5 years. Her life savings went into trying to get herself better. She was left at the end of it being told that she'd have to have both legs amputated, and unless she got on high dose chemo and steroids, and her life was going downhill fast. And she'd never been suicidal before, but she became intensely suicidal and would fantasize. And that's really the word that makes sense, because she said that that was where she would gain some relief in just thinking about these horrible thoughts to end her life, because her pain was so horrible. And that's the state that many people around the world are in. And if it wasn't for what she found with what we were doing for her with Well of Life and the content that she watched, just like this series, she did not find that, she would still be in the same situation, or she would not be here with us today. Back to swimming, cycling, living her best life, being in complete, perfect shape, having thin, slim legs and that was swelled up, that was so swollen, that was so ridden with toxins that she had this prolific edema connected to the vasculitis, and that combo of what was going on in her body was just horrific. And the one thing that she said that was profound, because you'd say, well, why didn't all the other approaches work with, especially the natural medicine, naturopathic medicine, functional medicine? She said there was one reason. It was the sequence. The sequence wasn't the same. And the sequence that you gave to me with the protocol that you gave me with Well of Life that she got from a page just like this, was what changed everything for me. I was able to get rid of the toxins, the parasites, support my liver, kidneys, digestive system. And we have that entire program. So when you order this package today, you'll be getting all 8 supplements in our 60-day protocol for Healing Revolution. You'll also get the red light therapy belt that will help activate those prolific, amazing proprietary formulas, doctor formulated, in your body. As well as that is all the content, the information, the community support, and so much more. It's over $4,800 worth of free gifts. Just the belt alone is $400, the supplement protocol $400, but they're all free in the gold package. So make sure to scroll down below, place your order while it's available. This is while stocks last. We have a lot of people tuned in, as I mentioned, and this is going to sell out. So make sure you secure this for yourself and for your family, because when you make a decision like this, like something like a red light therapy belt, that's not just for a one-time use. That's not just for a few months and that you have to keep reordering. It's a one and done. So it's a really great solution that is something that can be shared by the whole family. If you have parents or children or a partner, a spouse, pass this around. Get everyone that you love and care about using this one tool, and watch people's health get set on the right track in such a record time. And if you've got supplements, or if you've got even a red light therapy belt just like this from us, for example, then here's the time to get a second one as a gift. I was just on the beach a moment ago with my cousin, who is a veteran. He served in Iraq, which is very sad. These types of things that are happening, that are wars that are fought, that aren't often or ever the decision of the people, but the elites, if you will, that put people in these terrible situations. He's had horrific PTSD, and his body has all the hallmarks of being worn and torn to the ground. He, even during training, he had seizures and fever that, because of the heat that he was in, that caused some brain damage and horrible things in his body. And so seeing these things turn around because of red light therapy is just wonderful. And he has 2 young daughters that are my nieces, and my wife and I adore these 2 precious girls. They're just a little bit older than my 2 boys. And so what I can do to help him with his health is me helping take care of those precious girls. So just think about all the people in your life, your loved ones, that need help. He couldn't take a flight of stairs, and now it's as if it's nothing for him now. And it's not even that he's doing red light therapy every day. He's a little harder to motivate than your average person. Got some of my wife's stoic stubbornness, I guess. Look, maybe I need to delete this. Do I delete this? I don't know. but we're all a little stubborn, so she'll say the same thing about me, and that's fine. We will have a good laugh about that. But he, after even just doing several treatments, those treatments have held and lasted and continued to for the last couple of months, which is powerful. And so he's living a great life and out of pain and mobile and agile. Those girls certainly need their dad to be agile so he can keep up with them and give them a happy life. And, you know, down swimming on the beach and enjoying time with them this morning was definitely a beautiful time, and one I don't take for granted. So don't take what you have, the health that you have, even though you might be struggling, don't take it for granted, and build upon it and support your body. Use tools that will help you with that. Grab this tool while it's available here on this page. Don't delay. Grab it all the masterclasses, all the live sessions, the community sessions, the ability to connect and bond with other people and even meet with me directly in those settings. Get a face-to-face with me in these settings, as well as our one-on-one autoimmune health assessment that's one-on-one with a health coach with you, and so much more. We've just got it all here for you, all the masterclasses. Again, over $4,800 worth of free gifts, but you have to take action. Scroll down below, place your order here today while it's available, and I look forward to seeing you inside the program, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Thanks so much.
I'm Susan Russell, and I am the founder and the owner of Mold Dog Knows. We have our mold dog here, Zia. Zia, do you want to come up here and say hello?
Come on, girl.
Can they say Zia?
Hey.
This is Zia, our mold dog, and I'm going to let Lane tell a little bit more about her. But Lane is our handler, and that means that he takes Zia on the jobs, and they pinpoint mold. Hidden toxic mold.
My name is Lane Simmons. I am the canine handler and Zia's handler for Mold Dog Knows. I was a former law enforcement officer of 13 years, and my last 5 years I worked a dual-purpose police dog. So I worked a dog that worked in scent detection and in patrol work. So my last 5 years in law enforcement I spent as a canine handler, and then when my dog retired and I went back to patrol, I quickly realized that, you know, I just loved working with dogs in a just working capacity, and the companionship was nice. It was kind of bittersweet. I didn't have the dog in my car riding around anymore. And so I quickly knew that was my calling. So when I left law enforcement, actually one of their former patients is a neighbor of mine. So she gets their, email newsletters, and she happened to show that to my wife and said, "Hey, Natural Healing Center is hiring a mold dog handler." And I applied and interviewed and got hired.
Yeah, I say we're blessed. We lucked out. There's a lot we didn't know when we went into this. Let me give you the backstory about how this all started. I am highly mold sensitive and have been impacted by mold toxicity, which is called mold illness, and which has led to, there are several symptoms and or diagnoses, but CIRS is one of the big ones, chronic inflammatory response syndrome. The other is mast cell activation syndrome, and of course mold illness. And it's all part of something, a bigger picture called biotoxin illness, environmental illness. And so we've walked through this. My husband and I, my husband is Dr. Rodney Russell at the Natural Healing Center, and I run that practice. I don't actually physically work at the office, but I manage a staff. And we had been through on 2 occasions of having me react in the house and not knowing what it was. Called in mold inspectors, certified licensed mold inspectors that told us the house was fine. And I'm like, no, the house is not fine. I'm like, I'm so sick. They call us like the canary in a coal mine. So both times we were told the house was fine, and I knew it wasn't. So this also has happened to many of our patients. Mold, hidden, toxic mold, it's hidden. It's not always visible. People, when you mention toxic mold, they think of black mold and that you're going to see it in the ceiling and on the floor and the cracks on the windowsills. Yes, you can. But more often than not, it's hidden behind the walls, in the drywall, in the insulation. It can be under the flooring. It can be in the ceiling. It can be, it's everywhere. And he's going to talk more about where he finds it with Zia. But it was a patient that we didn't know about a mold dog until a little over a year ago. And it was a patient that my husband, she had 2 mold inspectors clear their house, give clearance. And the whole family was sick. They had to move out. I mean, it can be devastating. And when my husband tested her, he's like, no, you have current exposure just through applied kinesiology muscle testing. And he told her to go back, and you got to keep looking. You got to find it if you want to stay there. And it was a friend of hers that had located a mold dog that was coming through Texas. And sure enough, the mold dog found mold in the bedroom, and they got that taken care of. So we set out. I told my husband, like, this is fantastic. I mean, it makes sense. They have dogs for narcotics and cadavers, and they have COVID sniffing dogs, bed bug dogs. You basically imprint the dog, and I'm going to let him talk about that. The training is the same, but you imprint them on the scent. So it makes sense. But we set out to get a dog and find the person to train our dog. And this is extensive training that Zia's gone through. This is not like a week's training. I mean, she's intensively trained for up to like 1,000 hours. I mean, it's pretty intense. And Lane, being the experienced one that has taken her on, has really honed her skill. With his experience combined with her certification, it's really taken her really, really far. And she's very successful. So it was going to actually be me and my husband acting as the handler. And we soon realized as we were going into training, I was like, this is not going to work. You have way too many patients. He thought it'd be fun to take a break and not have to work with patients and work with the dog. And I'm like, that's not going to work. And I'm sensitive. I shouldn't be out doing that and training the dog every single day. The dog has to be calibrated. So that's what we call calibration, or we call calibration when the training takes place every day on the scent. And that is how she earns her food. That's how she eats. So that's the story of how we got into it. And it's been hugely successful. There's such a demand out there, unfortunately. So I'll let you talk a little bit about your experience.
So I don't do the initial training. And that's just, I'm busy working her. And like we were talking about earlier, we're adding a second dog to our arsenal. So they get trained by a trainer. And basically what they do is they call imprinting odors. So that's either with, actual plates of mold, dishes of mold, swabs of mold, or, sometimes drywall that inspectors or remediation people have taken out. So just all different forms. And they basically just teach the dog that, hey, this is gold. And once they smell that, they get rewarded. With her in particular, she's a food reward dog, meaning kibble or treats or something like that. So it's, hey, smell this. As soon as she smells it, boom, here's a mouthful of treats. And then they realize quickly, oh, wow, like I get a mouthful of treats if I smell this. So that's the basic understanding of it. And then it just progresses through teaching them how to go out and search for it on their own. And then when they search for it on their own, then they get that reward. So the flip side to the food is a toy. So you see a lot of police canine videos, a lot of police dogs, they play with a toy. That's their reward. So same exact concept. When instead of getting paid, what we call it, with food, they get paid with a toy. I always say, like, dogs are just built different, right? They've got, anywhere from 10,000 to 100,000 times the olfactory senses that humans have. So she doesn't need to see it. She could really be blind and go in a house and find it. So she's just able to sniff the odor of the mold in a house that a traditional inspector is unable to find. And even a lot of our clients, actually probably a vast majority, we come in and they've spent thousands of dollars on traditional mold inspections, and they're like, I don't know where it is still. And in some cases, it's $20,000 on air samples alone. And within 5 minutes, she finds it in their pantry. So it's pretty incredible what they're able to do just with their nose and some, scent training.
Can you expand a little bit on, I think it's fascinating, just the cone, the scent?
Yeah. So essentially, I always paint the picture. It's easiest for people to understand where, if I was to take a rotten egg and go hide it somewhere in a house, just a human within 10, 15 minutes would be able to, walk in somewhere and go like, oh, what is that? Right. So if we can detect that, imagine 10,000 to 100,000 times the nose. It's very easy for them to find, right, if they're trained properly. So basically what that means is if you have a mold problem in your house, generally what we see is it's been there for a while. It's been a recurring problem. So you can imagine, like, if that egg had been sitting there for months or years sometimes, she comes in the house, like, it's game over for the mold. We're going to find it. And as the scent goes out, like from the egg, it's very strong right at the egg, and it expands out, and the way odor travels, it just gets bigger and just dissipates, right? So she's trained to, when she comes into a house, she gets that odor that's in the air, and then she's trained to work what we call a scent cone, where the odor travels out in a cone shape from whatever object it is. So if it's mold under a kitchen sink, that cone is coming out from the kitchen sink. She may hit the living room or dining room and get that scent cone, and then she's trained to work that pattern to what we call the source of odor. There are some breeds that you would kind of look at as working dogs or hunting dogs. A lot of law enforcement uses Belgian Malinois and German Shepherds because they're very high drive dogs. And so that's really the key. You really want a really highly driven dog. And you can get really deep into that where, there's different types of drive that a dog has. They have a hunt drive where they want to go out and hunt for things and look and search, which is really important. And then you have prey drive, where that's more so, a dog sees a lizard run by or a bug, and then they want to go chase that. That's more of a prey drive. So you'll see beagles that have, high hunt drive, and then you'll see German Shepherds have high hunt drive. So it's a very wide variety of breeds. And then, like our trainer, Sector Canine, their big thing is shelter dogs. And they go adopt dogs from a shelter, and they turn them into phenomenal working dogs. So, and a lot of them they're mixed breeds, right? So half Belgian Malinois, half hound dog, half pit bull, half, so it just really depends. But it's really in the testing and identification of what that particular dog can do. She's actually a Drathar, which, most people ask, they're like, what in the world is that? And so it's like, well, she's most similar to a German wire hair pointer. And then even that, people are like, oh, and I'm like, have you ever seen a German short hair pointer, right? You're kind of typical bird dog. And they're like, yeah, that. And I'm like, it's like that, but she has longer hair. So she's a Drathar. She's 2 years old. And as you can see, her personality, she's just a love bug. Her butt's always wiggle. I call her, she's a wiggle worm. But she's just, the sweetest dog ever. She's got golden eyes, and she's got a fantastic personality.
She does.
She's more of a low-key dog, right? She's more methodical when she's searching, and some dogs will just be, you let them into a search area, and they're running through glass trying to chase odor, you know what I mean? So, and they don't think as much. She's more of a methodical searcher, so she's awesome.
Yeah, the reason we got her, she's a Deutsch Drathar, and which is a hunting dog. So we got her for her sniffer. She's a hunting dog. Yep. She goes after scent.
Yes.
I think one thing too that's so fascinating, and I'm going to hand this over and let Lane talk about it. So just about what he looks for, why his training as a handler is so important. I like to say that really, you can have a really fabulously trained dog that knows how to detect scent, but if you don't have a handler that knows what they're doing, the team is only as good as the handler.
Yeah.
So there are things that he is trained in. When I hear him talk to another former law enforcement canine handler or current, it's just like, oh my gosh, this is so fascinating.
She's like, what does that mean? What does that mean?
There's just there's so many nuances to what they're doing and what they're keeping an eye on. And, from his experience in doing, with law enforcement, there's just so many steps that he takes that we would just kind of like blow over. But I think it's important.
Yeah. So, and it goes outside of just, being able to what we call read a dog, right? What's their behavior showing while we're working? But it's also reading the environment, right? Like it's, where's the AC in the ceiling? Where is it pointing to? Where is it blowing at? Because if it's not a very big room and it's 8-foot ceilings and the AC is blowing right at the window, and she goes over and alerts on the window, and you don't have a handler that goes, oh, well, it's probably in the air conditioner. It's actually hitting that wall and the odor's dissipating. Somebody doesn't know how to read a dog, or they don't know how to read their environment, or they don't know how odor works. They could tell the homeowner, well, she alerted on the window, and then they're tearing the window out for no reason when the problem's actually in the air conditioning. So, while kind of touching on what she just said, you could have the most phenomenally trained scent dog in the world, and somebody who's not experienced, like if I handed her the leash and said, here you go, work the dog, it would mean nothing. So it's very, very important to have a handler that has been trained properly and knows how to train the dog properly and knows how to read those behaviors. Because if not, then you're really just carrying a leash around and you don't know what you're looking at.
Something is also very interesting is you get the comments about, and we've heard with other dogs or just anything with a mold dog, but that they've torn something up and there's nothing there, but that's not necessarily true. When he's done training, he would take a speck of mold that is not even clear to our eye, put it on a clear piece of tape, place it on the wall, and then just have her go around, and she will locate that speck of mold on the tape on the wall. So there's a pretty darn good chance that if the dog is alerting, and you break open that wall, you don't see it, it doesn't mean it's not there.
Right. And so what she's talking about is different things will absorb odor. And because, I've obviously been trained well and I've been taught that, I keep a lot of different things in with her mold that we train with. And one of those is tape, and the tape will just absorb the odor. Well, I do that. There's two reasons I do that. Number one, I want her to find a small amount. But number two, it's, dogs go a lot of off of association. And so, how do you teach a dog that something is in a wall, because they just see that, like, it's not a box, it's not a cabinet, it's not a toilet, it's just a wall. And so they could be getting odor, but if they haven't been shown like, oh, it can actually be in a wall, then they'll just leave the odor. So I do that as a training point. So when she's going down a wall, oh, I smell that, right? And here's the source. She puts her nose on the tape, and then she alerts, and I pay her. So she'll start associating like, oh, okay. Doesn't always have to be in something. And that goes the same with AC. We go into a room, and if mold's blowing out of the air conditioner, it's swirling around in the air. She can know, like, okay, well, it doesn't have to be in something in here. It can just be in the air. So there's a lot that goes into it. And, if you're not trained properly, then, you wouldn't really know that.
My name is Doug Kaufman. I have a television show that airs globally. It's been on 25 years, called Know the Cause, Understand Why You're Sick. That's the whole basis of the show. I came upon that name after hosting a radio show for quite a period of time and interviewing doctors. And I learned that there are two kinds of doctors. Those who go with tradition, we call those allopaths, and those who question things that everybody might question. And those are called good doctors. The allopaths are good doctors also. They just look at things a little bit differently. Maybe nutrition can help my patient, maybe not. My career is so interesting. When I was 18 years old, I was high on the draft number system back then, and we got to watch the Vietnam War on television, which made it even harder. Got a draft notice, went to take a physical, and learned during that physical that I didn't have to go in the Army. I could choose the Air Force or Coast Guard or anywhere and maybe not go to Vietnam. So I chose the Navy. The Navy trains a hospital corpsman. They offer you an education called Hospital Corps School in Emergency Medicine. Then you're shipped off to the Marine Corps, Camp Pendleton, where you learn how to shoot guns and so forth. So I went through all that training, hoping the war would end during those couple of years. It didn't. So off I went to Vietnam, and we were attached as hospital corpsmen. We were attached to a couple hundred Marines out in the field. So we were their medical liaison. I came back from Vietnam in 1971 and was different. My hair was falling out, my skin, I had jungle rot, and I had stomach problems and so forth. I worked with Dr. Everett Hughes at USC Medical School on a collaborative couple of research papers linking food allergies to symptoms. And one day Dr. Hughes said to me, "You're not feeling well, are you?" And I said, "No, I'm really not. I changed. I don't know what happened." We didn't know at that time what post-traumatic stress was in 1970. And so I assumed there was something gone awry inside my body. Went through some food allergy tests and learned that I was allergic to a whole bunch of things. And all of those things, not coincidentally, I have learned since, were foods I ate. So I went off those foods and began to eat other foods and felt good for a month. Then I became allergic to all those things. Long and the short of it is I was one of the early discoverers that food allergy occurs when gut permeability exists. So I started a food allergy laboratory in the early 1970s that went very, very well. Moved on from that to clinical nutrition, where I go into doctors' offices and counsel their patients from a supplement standpoint and a nutrition standpoint, believing totally that the father of medicine, Hippocrates, was right. Food really can be your medicine. And so that's kind of my background and career. One day I was climbing up the stairs. I became paranoid on an elevator with other people, and we didn't have a telephone we could fake a phone call. And so Dr. Hughes said to me, can I ask you a question? In Vietnam, did you eat raw fish? Sounds like you have a parasite. And I said, well, I did a couple of times. It was called Nook Mom. The women cleaning the operating rooms and so forth were helping us, would bring us rice and raw fish. So I went to the library, and I got a library card, something the younger generation doesn't know anything about. And I checked out a book called Parasitology. The book was written in the 60s, as I recall. But I opened the book, and one of the chapters was fungi and yeast. Yeast are single-celled fungi. Fungi and yeast parasitizing man. Well, I had horrible skin problems from the war. And we didn't really know what caused these things. So I began to wonder if this wasn't, because we were wet all the time. We slept outside, we ate outside, everything we were wet. Our socks, our underwear, our clothing, always wet. I had a condition on my skin we called jungle rot because we were outside and we were wet all the time. It's just pustules all over, itchy and so forth. It's created, they say, by a mycobacterium. Myco means fungus. Bacteria is bacteria. Which is it, guys? And I decided when I opened the chapter in that parasitology book that was talking about yeast and fungi parasitizing man, all I thought was flukes or tapeworms or, little worms were parasites. I didn't know fungus could parasitize man. This is a mycobacterium on my skin. I wonder if it's a myco. I wonder if yeast has somehow gotten inside my body, permeated the skin, gotten inside my body. So I began looking at an antifungal approach to my symptoms. And I'm telling you, you would do anything. I got a doctor to prescribe a drug called nystatin, an old gut antimicrobial pill. But there were therapies that were fascinating to me. Urine therapy was something back in the 70s I looked at. And there are people who swear by that and doctors who swear against it. So I began thinking, okay, there might be something to all of this. Allergy tests, etc. I would do anything to feel better. With this nystatin, with a changed diet, not bacteria, not protozoa, not viruses, but fungi are living organisms that parasitize man and then must eat. Once they get on board, they've got to have carbohydrates. They have to have sugars. Most people don't know this, but when you eat a bowl of cereal or you take a bite of bread or you eat a bowl of pasta, that's a couple tablespoons of sugar you're eating. It turns into glucose by the time it materializes in your body. So there I was, my favorite food, pasta, pizza, etc., eating all of that. So I quit. And I began feeling better and better and better. And the symptoms that disappeared in me were truly unbelievable. And a doctor in LA I went to work for asked me if I would begin helping his patients nutritionally. And so I began seeing my own symptoms get better, helping his patients. He was an ear, nose, and throat doctor. I wrote a book about all of this in the early 1980s, and a doctor in Dallas, Texas, called me and said, that's baloney. I said, okay, doc, what part of the book is baloney? You're talking about gut problems causing skin problems and brain problems. Of course, today, decades later, we now understand how that works, but he was very important in the field of dermatology, and he said, I have huge numbers of patients with psoriasis. Do you think you could fix them? And I said, I don't know. I'll fly out. We'll sit down with your patients for a week. And I began to counsel them, and I asked the doctors if we could put these patients on a couple of antifungal drugs for 2 weeks only, and my diet, which minimized carbohydrates and accentuated good fats, proteins, things like today are popular. And this wasn't, this is decades ago before that was popular. The patients began responding miraculously. Not only was their skin getting better, not all of them, but the majority of them, not only was their psoriasis getting better, but they would sit down with David, the doctor, and I together and say, does this have anything to do with migraines? Why? Because for the past couple of weeks, I haven't had my migraines, and they're very common. My bowels are working now. Why is that? I would recommend psyllium and beta-glucan and probiotics and so forth. And they'd tell us the arthritis, the depression, the things that were getting better, and he was a dermatologist. So he brought in a family practice doctor, and we began seeing huge numbers of patients. And this very doctor that called me and questioned me in 1985, all of a sudden by 1987, 1986, I was in his office seeing a whole lot of his patients. I began realizing that fungus was a huge deal for this reason. Fungi make poisons. Myco means fungus. Mycology is the study of fungus. A mycologist is a doctor who graduates with a PhD degree, not an MD. He can't see patients, which is a huge problem. So doctors don't learn this in medical training. Huge amount of bacteria, huge amount of virology, very little mycology, vaginal yeast, ringworm, etc. And so I began seeing case after case after case, hundreds of cases that were improving with an antifungal approach. Do we have to use medications? No. I found out that nature supplies, plentiful garden of antifungal. People don't know, but vitamin D3, cholecalciferol is great antifungal. Vitamin B3, niacin, great antifungal. Caprylic acid, monolaurin, broccoli. The list just goes on and on and on of foods that have medicinal properties, the sulforaphanes and so forth. And so through the years, I worked with that doctor for 5 years. He passed. I went to work with another doctor who saw my work. By the way, at the hospital, there were now doctors sending us their most difficult patients, and I was so thrilled with that. But you got to see what we call a polysymptomatic patient, one with numerous symptoms, who was seeing numerous doctors. You got to roll it all into one ball, that a lot of their symptoms, be they vision, migraines, ringing in the ears, tension, stress, hypertension, hypercholesteremia. You got to see a bunch of symptoms that improve while on an antifungal therapy. Today, I've created a hit, and it wasn't me. I and other people that we have trained through continuing medical education courses have learned that the antifungal approach is a wonderful way to go. Many schools today, even including elementary schools all the way up to college, dormitories, classrooms, etc., they're old, established. That means asbestos, lead, mold, etc. This is so sad, but sometimes these are deemed safe. We're all thumbprints. Our toxic load to mold, asbestos, lead differs from person to person. There is no such thing as safe pathogenic mold. None. I remember years ago, this happened to a friend of mine who had an old home, and it sat down and a lake sat above him. And the lake would overflow when they had torrential rain, and it'd get in their living room. And his wife began having horrible symptoms. I was in the field I'm in, so I said, you ought to have this home tested for mold. Now, mind you, this is back 35, 40 years ago. They had it tested, huge mold problem. They put more than the value of the home from their insurance company into remediating the house and elevating the house so the water wouldn't do that anymore. I believe insurance companies stepped in and said, no mas, we're not going to spend this kind of money. We're not going to cover mold. Mold is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And if I had a son or a daughter in a dorm in a school, I'd get an apartment. I'd really check out. There are so many symptoms, literally everything from head to toe can be due to mold. Doctors don't know that. They don't know the pericardium, the sac that holds the heart, can be impregnated with mold and then provoke perhaps atypical ventricular contractions. They don't know that the lungs, that X-ray and exam can't tell the difference between an aspergillus lump. Fungi grow in lumps in the lung or lung cancer. I wonder how many doctors rush to biopsy. If you're going to get a biopsy, split the sample. Some of it goes off to a cancer testing lab. Let a mycology lab test the other half. That's Aspergillus mold. That's not. There are papers and papers and papers in the scientific literature. Here's one that's kind of mind-boggling. A few years ago, 2015, I believe it was, 21 cadavers. This is in Spain. They called in pathologists to do the post-mortem on these cadavers. They reported back to the doctors. They wanted to know what the cause of their death was. Well, in 11, we found something strange. We found mold growing in their brain and throughout their body in 11, but not the other 10. Can you imagine the doctors who knew what those 21 patients died of? So patient 1, 4, 7, 8, 9, the 11 died of Alzheimer's. The other 10 did not die of Alzheimer's. Documented. And then up comes the rug, and we sweep that all, and we lower it. Mold toxicity has much to do with everything from depression, another new paper out, to anxiety, to childhood behavioral problems, and yet if we don't teach our doctors that, it doesn't exist. Same with the mold in these old school buildings, or the asbestos. Saying asbestos is safe? The truth is hard to come by. Truth is, you got to do your own investigations. As far as serious disease initiated by some of these molds and or their mycotoxins, we know that about 300 molds make poisons. Once they're inside our body, these fungi, first of all, can get across the blood cell barrier, or the cell barrier, the white blood cell that contains the nucleus. They can breach the cell wall, then breach the nuclear wall, and they can mutate our DNA. Doctors believe that cancer occurs when mutated and rapidly proliferating mutated DNA or nucleic acids exist. I concur. The problem is what mutates them. Well, we don't know. Poison will mutate them. There is one mold called Aspergillus that has many species. Aspergillus parasiticus is a type of Aspergillus mold that causes human, at very least, liver cancer. They're wondering about other cancers now. They're beginning to study this because it will mutate the DNA and grow rapidly. Fungi have learned to evolve, protecting themselves from a process, a normal physiological process we call phagocytosis. Our white blood cells open up and gobble debris, artifacts, poisons, bacteria in our body. When they grow in a sac, it's a rubbery sac, much like a tumor sac, and the white blood cell can't get in there. And yet they grow anaerobically. So do cancer tumors. Yeah, but they're starved when you don't give them sugar. Same with cancer tumors. They liberate a caustic substance called lactic acid, these fungi do. So do cancer cells. But they off-gas VOCs, volatile organic compounds. So do cancer tumors. Yeah, but dogs can detect fungus or cancer growing in your body. Dogs can also come into your kitchen and detect mold in your kitchen. There are so many similarities between cancer and these sac fungi. We call them ascomycetes. How do we give a test animal diabetes? 2 mycotoxins, baflomycin and streptozotocin. We inject them into bunnies, and they all get diabetes. Their pancreas is blown out, beta cells gone. How do we give cancer to study animals? We use Aspergillus mold, a byproduct of it called aflatoxin. We inject bunnies with, and they all get cancer. How do we give a bunny Alzheimer's or dementia? Ibotenic acid, a mycotoxin. Isn't there one PhD that goes home, sits down with his wife at dinner and says, "You're not going to believe this. You know those 400 bunnies, the university? Well, 30 of them died, so we got 370 bunnies, and now they all have diabetes. How'd you do that, honey? I don't know. I inoculate them over a period of time, and their pancreas blew out, and they all have the symptoms manifested in what we see in human diabetes." That never comes up. We induce diseases in study animals, because it's inhumane to do this to people, by using mycotoxins and they all get the disease, and yet we never question Alzheimer's. No, it's something, diabetes, you were born with it, or, 200 billion Americans have diabetes that haven't had it tested yet. Or cancer. We don't know why cancer is spreading at such a rapid pace. Yeah, we do. The medical community and mycologists believe the global warming and a warmer climate, fungi thrive, is contributing to this. I don't know if I buy that, but here's what I buy. Thanks to the Center for Disease Control, every year saying, guys, think fungus. If your patient isn't getting better, take them off antibiotics, put them on antifungals. Fungus is a problem because it mimics so many other diseases, diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancer, etc. There is no disease known to scientists, including autoimmune diseases, that fungi and their mycotoxins can't cause. Isn't that fascinating? I was giving a lecture and a doctor said, antibiotics and statin drugs are the boom in medicine. Trillions of dollars. You don't teach a 26-year-old kid in medical school that antibiotics cause cancer. You do not teach that. Making way too much money. And I think that's one of the reasons that this has never gotten out there. Kids are not going to learn about fungus because they're creating so many illnesses that we get to treat. If you have or you suspect a mold problem in a home or a school building, etc., I recommend you put in a photocatalytic air purifying system. They're out there. There are good ones, $500 range. Put it in your master bedroom. Some of them come with a 350 square foot, 750, 1,500, 2,000 square foot. Put it in your master bedroom because you spend a third of your life there. See if the symptoms you're experiencing, ear, nose, throat, mouth problems, thrush, don't get better just by putting something in there. There's a little known product that a guy, an attorney who I met years ago, put together. It's called TKO. It's promoted by a company in Ohio called Long Life Unlimited. It's D-limonene. It's orange oil. Hugely antimicrobial. We use it at home. Mop floors, clean walls, clean the interior of your car. It smells amazing. And because it's D-limonene, yet another phytonutrient, it just annihilates germs. And it smells great, no toxic. Use a capful in a bucket of water to clean the house. So there are things. Moisture is going to eventually, whether you have a slab floor or a wood floor, moisture is eventually going to take over. So clean up spills with a fan, big spills over tubs running over and so forth, with a fan, and leave it in there for a day or two. There are companies who come in, they have these little suction devices, and they can test the air in your home. They take it back to the lab, squirt it in the petri dishes, grow them out, and have a laboratory tech look at them and differentiate what kind of mold that is. Again, most mold is non-pathogenic. The mold that is pathogenic can kill you very quickly. That's what the Center for Disease Control has now found. I think the reason that all these research papers are now coming out is because doctors are starting to get it. Whereas the information has been suppressed, it's now beginning to come out. Mold's a big problem.
Dr. David Morcom takes the mold conversation even deeper, revealing how mycotoxins don't just affect your lungs and sinuses, but can actually rewire your nervous system. These toxic compounds produced by mold hijack brain dysfunction, disrupt neurotransmitters, and even mimic neurological conditions. Conditions like anxiety, depression, and brain fog are often blamed on stress or aging, when in reality, mycotoxin exposure could be the real culprit. And here's where things get even more alarming. These toxins don't just leave the body on their own. If your detox pathways are blocked, they recirculate in your bloodstream, causing chronic inflammation, hormonal imbalances, and long-term neurological damage. Dr. Morcom exposes how mold and mycotoxins manipulate the brain, why traditional treatments fail, and how to flush these toxins out for good. After that, Dr. Betty Murray exposes a major cover-up in the food industry, one that's fueling the epidemic of chronic illness. After World War II, our food system shifted from real nutrition to chemical convenience. Companies stripped essential vitamins, minerals, and fiber from food to increase shelf life, leaving us with ultra-processed, nutrient-depleted products that do more harm than good. Then in the 1980s, things got even worse. High fructose corn syrup flooded the market, bypassing normal metabolism and going straight to the liver, leading to an explosion in metabolic disorders and fatty liver disease. And here's what they don't tell you. Food companies engineer addiction. Ingredients like MSG, monosodium glutamate, manipulate brain chemistry, triggering cravings and keeping people hooked on processed foods. Dr. Murray reveals how the food industry turned real nutrition into a business of addiction. And most importantly, how you can break free from it.
I'm Dr. David Morcom. I'm a functional medicine practitioner based out of Dallas, Texas. And I specialize in really just understanding the nitty-gritty of the biochemical and the pharmacology with my background, combining it with the natural and the bioenergetic, understanding how all the pieces connect and how to really just deal with complex chronic disease using all the technologies that we have today. And my health journey really was accentuated when I got hit by a car. I have numerous brain injuries back to back when I was a very young lad. I think I was 20 at the time of my first one. So with that and getting exposed to mold after there, having a lot of toxicity, and then recently having some Lyme issues, it's really, some of the most complex aspects of complex chronic disease. And I've had the triad of all three. And so I've really learned from the experiential level as a wounded healer how to address these things. There's certain types of mycotoxins that are called trichothazines, and they come from some of the black molds like Stachybotrys jetarum. And these things are very inflammatory, very toxic, and they damage the liver and the kidneys, and they poison the mitochondria themselves. So if the mitochondria is not making energy, ATP, we can start getting chronic fatigue and pain, and causes neurological issues. Anything that affects the mitochondria is going to cause brain issues normally, and that's usually one of the first places it shows up, because there's 10 times the amount of mitochondria in the brain, in the nervous system, than any other place in the body, because it's so metabolically active. And so when we have a neurotoxin like mercury or mold, other heavy metals, we can't make enough energy to handle the amount of output that needs to happen, and we start having cognition issues and symptoms. And on top of that, mold just creates a lot of inflammation. And so it's just going into the brain. These toxins are fat soluble. So where do they go? They collect into the nervous system itself, and they cause disruption in the mitochondria in this neuroinflammatory state. And when there's all this inflammation, the brain is on fire. So it's constantly firing. You have something called glutamate excitotoxicity. And this is the restlessness, this is the anxiety, this is the trouble down regulating and going to sleep. This is the ADHD, is just, or not being able to focus on one thing at a time. And so we're all dealing with this in some way and in some manner, just because we all have so much exposure to these toxins, so much inflammation at baseline right now. But when you take in, a severe neurotoxin like mercury and mold, it just really ups the ante. Mold further, it really prevents the bile ducts from working like they should. When we're dealing with these things creating oxidative stress and estrogen dominance, for example, that may be leading to a chronic condition like cancer, we want to really look upstream to what is causing that in the first place. And oxidative stress could come from numerous different places, whether it's gut issues and parasites and that leaky gut, intestinal permeability, where 80% of inflammation comes from. It can come from chronic infections as well. But, toxicity is a really interesting thing to talk about because it's something we're all being exposed to at unprecedented rates. They say that the average male is exposed to 150 chemicals every single day, and that women are exposed to double, over 300. And that statistic's very old at this time, so I'm sure that it's a lot more. With the continued toxicity that I've seen even in my practice, is the amount of people walking in with heavy metals just at baseline. Everyone has a little bit at this point. It's not even if you have it, it's how much do you have it in many ways. And the problem a lot of times is these toxins hide, and they're fat soluble. They'll go into the tissues themselves, into the deep recesses, and they're hard to even analyze. because of these toxins are very hard to measure in many ways because they are hiding in the tissues themselves. So when you just do a blood analysis, a lot of times it'll get missed. And so many times when we're measuring for this, we will stimulate its release a little bit with taking some glutathione, some NRF2 upregulators, some bitters to get that bile flow going. So, that's one problem that a lot of times is not even caught by, especially if you're going within the normal system, but even within the integrated system, it's harder to catch unless you know what you're looking for. And then the second aspect here is that toxins are just really hard to deal with. They are going into the deep recesses of the tissues themselves. They're fat soluble and they collect in the mitochondrial membranes especially. The mitochondria are the energy factories of the cell. And they have a double biphospholipid layer of how they make ATP or energy. And so they have a lot of fat in them. So the toxins will collect there and really interfere with mitochondrial energy production at such a base level, be able to make ATP to do anything in our body, whether it's repair or detox or heal. And we have 10 times the amount of mitochondria in our brain than any other part of the body. So the nervous system especially will be affected often when we have exposure to these toxins. And so when we look at the epidemic of mental health issues these days, when you look at it from the frame of toxicity and seeing that baseline mitochondrial dysfunction, but also neuroinflammation that people are experiencing on the daily, there's no wonder why there's so much brain fog and anxiety and depression. Because when we have, it's too much of this brain on fire, it goes into this glutamate excitotoxicity, this storm, and we have too much of this glutamate firing. That's the restlessness, the anxiety, the depression, sometimes with all the inflammation here. We can really address the glutamate excitotoxicity by calming down the inflammation of the brain, but also using things with GABA. These are different nutritional components and supplements that can act on this receptor system to cause down regulation, to balance the nervous system. But then we really need to go deeper. We need to look at what is causing this inflammatory storm of the brain in the first place. And that goes back to a lot of what I was talking about before. When a toxin is inside the mitochondrial membranes, into the fat cells, into the cell membranes, which are all fat, into the nervous system and the brain itself, it doesn't come out very easily. The half-life of a lot of these toxins like mold are over a decade. And so if we aren't doing things consciously, intelligently to actually get them out, they're still there causing dysfunction, causing inflammation. And a lot of times, people come to me and they've got the perfect diet, they're on all the supplements, they're still having anxiety or fatigue and depression because there's deeper things going on here that really need to be addressed. We can only do so much at the initial superficial stages of suppressing that inflammation, of getting the hormones and energy systems up. That's a great first place, and getting the nutrition up, giving you adaptogenic herbs and nutraceuticals galore to get you feeling better. But the deeper stage really is going to what is causing a lot of the inflammation in the first place. And if we don't look at that and figure out what that is for each person, then we're really not doing the patient the full service to really address the root cause for the long term. And these patients, a lot of times, even the integrative fields, they're put on all these different supplements, or maybe they have IV nutrition and more advanced therapies. It's all helping to suppress the inflammation, get people feeling better. But then they stop the supplements and advanced regimens, maybe because they run out of money, and they start having problems and issues again, because the root source of the inflammation hasn't been affected. I like to use the metaphor of a tree often, and a lot of times the leaves are browning, the branches are getting weak, so we start watering the flowers with a bunch of different nutraceuticals and supplements and diet, lifestyle, and food restriction often just to feel better. And that can help for a period of time, but often the roots are actually rotting themselves. This is root systems of the body, like the gut, like the liver gallbladder system with all this toxicity, that become dysfunctional, that create the oxidative stress and inflammation that cause these withering of the leaves in the first place. So really, from the more functional medicine perspective, we want to go to the roots, discern what it is for each person that's creating that inflammation. We want to address that. and cut off that rotting roots and fertilize from the ground up. And when we do that, all the hormones, energy, mental health issues start improving, and they get better, and they stay that way because we actually address root cause. So to me, this is the most cost-effective, time-effective, and only true way to heal long-term. And so sometimes this work does involve us to dedicate to our health and can take a few months. But when there's complex chronic disease happening, we really just need to reset the system.
One of the things that has always bothered me as a scientist, so I'm a very logical human. Obviously, as a scientist, that's kind of where we sit. It boggled my mind that we had this perception that our hormones, estrogen particularly, but estrogen and progesterone, are absolutely normal and safe when you're in your childhood going into puberty all the way through your fertile years. But something magical happens at around 50 when we go through menopause, and those same hormones that your body made all of a sudden magically were cancer causing. That didn't ever make sense to me, because the reality is 4 in 1,000 women have a risk for breast cancer in their lifetime in postmenopause, right? So all of us carry that risk. And that risk increases as we go into menopause when our natural hormone production by our ovaries has flatlined. So if estrogen caused breast cancer, why don't we see an extraordinary amount of breast cancer in 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, when our hormones are wildly higher, right? And wildly fluctuating, right? In a very kind of expected way, but we have much higher levels of estrogen. And so if we look at what has changed in our environment, the reality is breast cancer has always existed, but the number of diagnoses is going up. The complications from it has gone up, and it is not because we're doing more mammograms. Mammograms do not prevent cancer, they detect cancer. The reality is the incidence of breast cancer has gone up. It's gone up in the last 20 years. That is also when we stopped giving hormones as the first primary intervention at menopause. And the reality is, I think there's a very, very big case for the environmental toxins that we have, the pesticides, herbicides, plasticizers, phthalates, the combinations of things that are added to our body care products, and all of the fragrance and everything else. All of those things are endocrine disrupting ingredients. They are toxins that look like hormones to our body. When we lose our natural hormone, when we lose our natural production of estrogen, we still have those toxins circulating, but we do not have our own estrogen to occupy those receptors. So the reality is we've got a bigger problem with the toxicity and the estrogen mimics, the xenoestrogens that are in our environment. It's not our natural hormones that cause breast cancer. It's not. And none of the research that was produced before the Women's Health Initiative showed that. We have plenty of research for decades prior to the Women's Health Initiative that shows that breast cancer was not increased in women taking hormones. When we're looking at the brain neurotransmitters, so those are the messengers in your brain that help you with memory and focus and your mood, nicotine is actually one of the important neurotransmitters in your body. We actually produce some nicotinic acid. Nicotine has been associated with cancer-causing chemicals because it naturally occurs in tobacco. However, nicotine itself is not carcinogenic. And nicotine in particular can help with attention, focus, and memory. There are some good studies that actually show that when you introduce nicotine, whether it's in a nicotine patch or a gum or a troche, that you actually can improve memory and cognition in people with mild to moderate cognitive decline. And so appropriately used, small doses of nicotine, obviously I don't recommend smoking or vaping, but using nicotine, a lot of our patients actually use patches, low-dose patches like 4 milligrams, can actually help deliver some of that nicotinic acid and help with memory, function, cognition, attention, and focus. Every single cell in your body detoxifies. Your genes define how good you are at that. Things like medications and even supplements and herbs and things like that also impact and are impacted by those genes. We have to acknowledge that toxins exist in our environment, and the minute you detox, you retox, right? Because the reality is your body is producing toxins all the time. Just breathing air produces toxins, right? Even if your air was pure. Now, when we go to detox, there's a lot of different opinions about detoxification. I actually wrote a book about detox in 2009 and reissued it in 2012. I always think of this as kind of reverse engineering. So if our excretion pathways are stool, sweat predominantly, we need to start at the very end and work our way backwards. So I want to make sure that I'm going to the bathroom, that my gut is healthy, that I've got a good exit route there. I want to make sure that somebody is sweating. People with thyroid problems often don't sweat if they've got iodine deficiency and other things. So it's kind of like cleaning up a house. I want to make sure that I can get all the toxins to the garage and I can throw that garage door open and get it all the way to the dumpster, right? I don't want to clean out the closets and the master bedroom and drag all that stuff to the garage and not be able to open the door. So we always start with gut health first. Make sure we've got the gut and all of those things balanced, and then we start to detoxify. Personally, and I would say this is true of our clinicians in the clinic, we like to individualize that based on the person's laboratory results, right? Some people may have heavy metal toxins, other people might have been exposed to mold, some people might have heavier environmental toxins, maybe because of their environment that they were in, and we can test for those. And so sometimes different ingredients or different combinations of things can actually help you detoxify. For instance, heavy metals can be chelated, and chelation can be done through IV, but it can also be done orally, right? And so there's different pathways to do it. So we usually then work through detoxification, and then we start looking at hormone balancing and improving metabolic function and all those different avenues afterwards. So when we're looking at chelation, different heavy metals have different affinity. So the way chelation works is it's kind of like, think of it as almost a metal magnet. So different types of chelators magnetize to different types of metals. So for instance, lead has a high affinity for the chelator EDTA. Mercury has a high affinity with DMSA or DMPS. And then you've got some of your other more weak chelators, like your zeolite and your charcoal, which is a good binding ingredient. You've got your humic and fulvic biomass and acids that are actually found in our soil that also can accumulate and pull out heavy metals. And even things like modified apple pectin actually has a binding capacity to metals. So depending on the person, if you're a highly sensitive person dealing with mold toxicity, you may not be able to tolerate, a full bore heavy metal, IV detoxification with chelators. You might start out with something very simple like modified apple citrus pectin and use that to start. So each person's a little bit different. So when you're looking at that kind of chelation pathway, it depends on what you're looking for and what you're trying to remove. I think some of the hardest things is there's some things that we don't know how to remove, like gadolinium. So some of our contrast agents that we use for like CT and MRI, we don't have good binding capacity. They don't have an affinity. They don't stick. There's not a magnetizer that pulls it out of the body. So people that have gone through a lot of imaging, they're going to have a lot more of that still resident in their body. Yeah, which is, there's researchers out there. I met a woman that was part of her PhD research, is actually looking for ways to get those things out of the body. Cancer genes is a pretty loaded question. When you're looking at most cancers, they're not directly related to an individual cancer gene. It's a combination of genes that are affected by our epigenetics. So for instance, breast cancer, the BRCA gene combination makes up 8% of all breast cancers, right? All those other breast cancers are a combination of epigenetics and diet, lifestyle, other things that are affecting the body's ability and the immune system's ability to remove those cancer cells. At any given time, we make cancer cells, but our immune system, when it's working, can go kill off those cells and take care of them.
Mold and mycotoxins are a hidden epidemic that's silently destroying our health under our very noses. And the scariest part, mold often goes undetected. Did you know that mold doesn't even need to be visible to cause damage? As Susan Russell and Lane Simmons revealed, toxic mold can hide behind walls, under roofs, and inside your home ventilation system, often escaping detection by standard mold inspections. This means that you could be living in a mold-infested environment without even knowing it, and the mold could be silently affecting your health for years. What makes this even more shocking is that mycotoxins, the toxic substances produced by mold, can directly affect your brain, triggering symptoms that mimic psychiatric disorders. We've learned from Dr. David Morcom that we have been exposed to mycotoxins. They hijack neurotransmitters, disrupt brain function, and cause symptoms like brain fog, anxiety, and depression. Many people experiencing these symptoms often chalk it up to stress or aging, when in reality, it could be the mold exposure rewiring their nervous system. And it's not just your brain that's at risk. Dr. Morcom warned that mycotoxins disrupt your immune system and cause chronic inflammation. What's even more alarming is that these mycotoxins don't just leave the body on their own. If your detox pathways are blocked, these toxins can recirculate in your bloodstream, causing long-term damage. It's a vicious cycle that leaves your body constantly fighting a battle it can't win. But here's the good news. Cleaning up your environment and proper detoxification are the key to reclaiming your health and preventing these toxic invaders from taking control of your life. Rebecca Smith's story proves that with the right detox protocols, diet changes, and working with knowledgeable professionals, you can break free from the toxic grip of mold. The more you know about these hidden dangers, the better equipped you'll be to protect yourself and your family. Hey there, it's Jonathan. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode. What an honor it has been to create this and of course the bonus episode, so make sure to watch that. A really quick reminder that as we wrap up this episode and we're getting close to wrapping up this whole screening on this episode and giving way to the next, we're getting closer to the end of this series, closer to when all these gifts and bonuses will expire, and so we'll wrap it all up then, and so we won't be then re-offering this. We haven't actually done this before, where we've added in the red light therapy belt and the supplements in the way that we have all together in a package, and it's something that we don't plan to offer again. So make sure to grab it while it's available. I want to help you and support you with your health, and I want to make it so easy that you don't have to think about it. And because you're covered by a 60-day money-back guarantee, if you think that, yeah, that's just a light, it's just a party trick, if there's nothing to it, then return it and just let us know, and we'll give you an immediate refund with no questions asked. It's not rocket science. It's very simple. We stand by what we're doing, and so few people do that because it's just a great value, and people see transformations and they don't want that to stop, and they want to keep on these therapies and they want to continue with that support. And when you get a health transformation, there's that law of reciprocity where you feel that somebody has really helped you and stood by you, and so you want to support that group that helped you achieve that, so that we can achieve that for others around the world and continue to screen out free materials to the public. And that's my greatest honor, truly. It's because of people like you that a small company like ours can keep going, keep touching the lives of those that need our help the most. And people are starving, dying for these types of resources, and they live often and suffer without ever knowing the things that you know. So again, check out this red light therapy belt. I'll grab it here, just one moment. And here it is. Here's the belt, and it's on right now. So all you have to do is just strap it on and continue to watch what this content that you're watching, put it on any area of your body, including your head, around your brain. These are critical areas. And the red light study is on eye health. Look, I can't tell people to do certain things. You have to do your own research, but in a heartbeat, because of the high quality of these LEDs, I would look into them, and I do. And this is an amazing way to improve eyesight as well as to get red light into your brain. So we're just excited about getting these tools into people's homes, in this case for free. So just claim these gifts. This is something that you can go and pay $400 for. You can go and purchase it from our company, Red Life, but you could get it for free here on this page by simply just clicking the link below and purchasing the Best Value Gold package that comes with this as a free gift. Along with the supplements, you get all $422 worth of supplements, the whole 8 supplement protocol. It's there for you as a gift to help you. And when you're getting parasites and toxins out of your body while supporting your liver, your kidneys, and your digestive health, your thyroid, this is all combined to help you get the toxins out and to help activate all of these amazing properties that are in these formulas with red and near-infrared light at both 660 and 850, the 2 most proven wavelengths, and you're hitting both of these at the same time. Near-infrared, you can't see it, so it's coming out of these dual LEDs, so you can see the red. And the near-infrared is also coming out because, again, the near-infrared is invisible and it's directly applied to the surface, just a little bit of warmth, which is actually quite pleasant. And you can strap this on while you're doing work, while you're socializing, while you're watching videos like this, while you're watching a movie. So it makes healing very simple and actually quite fun. So make sure to claim it. Scroll down below to place your order. Remember that we are coming close to running out on inventory as we progress toward the end of the series. And so make sure to claim it while it's available, and do so by scrolling down below and placing your order here on this page today. Thanks so much.